Hey guys, so today's video is going to be something a little bit different. I've never done anything like this before. This is going to be the first in a 4-part video series where I'm going to break down and teach you guys your favourite drum parts. I'm going to be including a bit about the band or artist that released the song, a bit about the drummer, and of course I'm going to be including a full breakdown of the song at the end of the video, so stick around if you want to see that. So without further ado, today's song is No One Knows by Queens of the Stone Age. Let's get into the video. So No One Knows is the second track in Queens of the Stone Age's 2002 album titled Songs for the Deaf. The band was formed in 1996 by vocalist Josh Homme, or Homme. In between their formation and their third album, the band released 2 albums. These were their self-titled debut album in 1998 and Rated R in 2001. The band was then joined by Dave Grohl to record Songs for the Deaf in late 2001, so let's talk a little bit about him. Dave started showing enthusiasm for the drums at a young age. His family could not afford lessons for him at the time, so he would learn by hitting pillows along to records. I love that. At age 17, Grohl started his music career by joining the punk band Scream after the previous drummer Kent Staggs left the band. Dave remained a member of this band until 1990 when the band broke up. Later that year, Grohl would be picked up to play for Nirvana on their second album Nevermind and would remain a member until the death of Kurt Cobain in 1994. He would then embark on a solo project later that year. This would become what we now know as the Foo Fighters. Just like any other drummer, Grohl's playing style comes from somewhere, so let's talk about his main influences. By far his biggest influence is Neil Peart. Grohl stated that Neil was an inspiration to millions with an unmistakable sound who spawned generations of musicians to pick up 2 sticks and chase a dream. Grohl also cites Stuart Copeland as an influence, saying that he grew up listening to the Police. Grohl also takes influence from other drummers such as Ringo Starr and John Bonham. I can hear a lot of Bonham in his playing style, I don't know about you. Now that section is over and done with, let's get into the breakdown. So the song starts right away with this 2-bar phrase of stabs. Underneath these stabs, the drums are playing a kick and floor tom on beats 1 and 3, and an open hi-hat and snare on beats 2 and 4. Here's how it sounds. When playing this, it's very important that you start with your leading hand on the floor tom. I know this might be obvious, however, you really want to emphasize that first downbeat. As for the hi-hat and snare, you can play this 2 ways. You can keep your hands in an open position, or you can cross over your hands. You can put your right hand on the hi-hat and your left hand on the snare. This is the way I personally choose to play it, but try both ways and see which one works better for you. If you're struggling with this intro pattern, take it one step at a time. Break it down like this. After the intro, we go into our groove. We come in on beat 1 with the crash cymbal, and then we carry on with this 4 on the floor beat, which is similar to a house beat. Every other bar we have a groove variation. The snare that would be on beat 4 shifts back to the and of 3, and there is an open hi-hat with the kick on beat 4. The intro closes out with this nice little fill. Here's how it sounds. For this fill, you come into it with a lifted hi-hat, kick and snare on beat 2. Then you move your leading hand over to the floor tom and play that with a kick on beat 3. Then we move our hands over to the snare and finish off with a left-right. Then we play the final 2 eighth notes, the 4 and, with a double on your weaker hand. This frees up our right hand to come in on beat 1 with the crash cymbal to move us into the verse. The verse is split up into 2 sections. We have an A section and we have a B section. Both are similar, however there are little variations that we're going to look at. For the A section, which is 8 bars long, we come in with the crash cymbal on beat 1 and we carry on with that same groove as before. For For the B section of the verse, we've got the same kind of groove, there's just a couple of little variations to look out for. The first of which is for the first 4 bars of this section, we open our hi-hat slightly to give us a little sizzle. The second variation that we have is on the second bar of the B section, we have this double snare hit on beat 4. It's just a 4 and. Then to close off the first 4 bars, we've got that offbeat snare thing that we heard in the intro. For the next 4 bars, we're tightening up our hi-hat and we're basically playing the intro again. So we've got a bar of groove with our offbeat snare, another bar of groove, and then a bar with our little fill. After that fill, the verse repeats itself almost in its entirety. I say almost because there is a little variation in the final bar before the chorus. This variation is very small. It is just an open hi-hat on beat 4 with the snare and kick. There is no fill. The chorus has a simple structure. We have 2 bars of fill followed by 2 bars of groove. This repeats itself 4 times. The first fill in the chorus is made of 8th note triplets played in single strokes. When playing this section, you really want to accent those tom hits on the mid or high tom. I've notated this on the mid tom, but you can choose to play it on the high tom if you think it sounds better. As for the feet, our hi-hat pedal is in action here. It's playing in unison with the kick on all 4 beats. To end off the fill, we start on beat 3 of the second bar and play singles starting on the snare with your strong hand. Take these singles around the toms, so we've got 2 hits on the snare, 2 hits on the mid tom, and then 2 hits on the floor. We then move into our chorus groove. This is our standard rock groove. Strong quarter notes on the crash, feet playing 2 8th notes on 1 and 3, and a snare on beats 2 and 4. After 2 bars of groove, we move on to our second fill. Again, 8th note singles, nothing weird. We're just changing the orchestration. We start on beat 1 with our leading hand on a crash, and then we continue the triplet pattern on the snare until beat 3 where we do the same thing again. Oh yeah, on each crash there's a kick. The second bar of this fill is where it changes slightly. The beginning is exactly the same, the change happens on beat 3. We continue with singles on the snare and take it around the toms, ending the fill in the same way as we did before. So again, starting on beat 3 of the second bar, 2 hits on the snare, 2 hits on the mid tom, and then 2 hits on the floor. After another 2 bars of groove comes our third fill. This fill is made up of something called hurters. A hurter is a hybrid rudiment made up of 2 16th notes followed by 2 8th notes. We're playing this in triplet form. For our orchestration, we're just switching drums every beat. So we're going snare, mid, snare, mid, snare, mid, snare, floor. As for our feet, it's the same as the first fill, so we've got kick and hi-hat pedal on every beat. After another 2 bars of groove, we get to our final fill. Crashes and kicks are on all 4 beats of the 2 bars. Every crash will be played on alternating hands. After this fill, we have another 2 bars of groove, which ends with a nice little ruff bringing us back into the verse. From this point forward, the song pretty much repeats itself, and we don't see any variation until the final 4 bars of the second chorus. There is this really disjointed fill. It sounds like this. So this fill, I'm going to count it out for you. I'm going to maintain a pulse on my fingers and I'm just going to count it out loud. 1, 2, a 4, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. After this fill we have 2 bars of chorus groove, same as before. However, on beat 3 of the second bar we start playing 8th note triplets, which leads us into the bridge, which sounds like this. The bridge starts off with this driving groove that isn't too different from the chorus groove. The only difference being a 16th note bass drum right after the snares and 2 and 4. This should sound like this. We play this groove for 3 bars and then on the 4th there is a fill. The fill is made up of quarter note triplets and it goes something like this. So for this, the drums we're playing goes as follows. A snare and open hat on beat 1, followed by another snare and then a kick. Then we have a flam snare on beat 3, followed by 2 hits of the mid and floor tom in unison. After the first fill, we repeat this section again. When we get to the fill for the second time, we follow it with 2 more repetitions of the same fill, and then we finish off the section with a fill that's slightly different. This slightly different fill is moving back into the regions of 8th note triplets. This fill starts with a flam on beat 1, followed by a kick, and then the floor and mid tom in unison. Then a kick, then floor and mid again. This pattern repeats itself once more, starting on beat 3. To finish the bridge, it's a snare and choked crash on beat 1 of the next bar. We then have a 4-bar rest, which leads us into the guitar solo. As there is a lot to cover in this section, I'm going to have you guys read along. There's a couple of doubles in this section. I've included the sticking patterns in the notation for this bit, so you don't need to worry. After the guitar solo we have a 7-bar rest. We come in on the and of beat 4 with a little pickup fill. It's 2 strokes on the floor tom and then 1 on the crash. Sounds a bit like this. We then come over to the hi-hat after this little pickup fill and play the verse groove for The outro section is basically our intro section again, however there is a variation on beat 4 of the second bar. Here, instead of having a snare and open hi-hat, we have an 8th note triplet fill which goes snare, mid, floor. And then we end the song on beat 1 of the next bar with a kick. Hopefully this video has been of some use to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.